everyone. Good evening. I'm going to talk about a research I did in this year, how we could identify the polarity of literature genre writing. Now, before we start, I have something to tell you guys. It's quite embarrassing, but I actually screwed up yesterday's rehearsal, so please mind that I could make a mistake a lot in this place. Okay? Thank you guys. Now let's start. To begin with, I'll explain how the experiment was conducted with related words, mainly Bert. Bert is an abbreviation of bidirectional encoder representation from transformers. To put it simply, it's a two-way encoder expression using transformer structures. Now, Bert and GPT are the examples which use transformer, but only Bert can examine the whole context of the sentence. This is because the pre-train process is different, but I will explain this part later with more detail. Now, if you look at this figure, you can see a certain result value at one layer. Bert gets information from every part, but GPT gets only gets information in front of the layer itself. Okay, so Bert is a masked language model, which means that it makes a blank called mask in the middle of the sentence and predicts what will go in there. Look at this case. What word should be going inside the blank? Wow. Yes, the word moa would be the most proper word that could go in there. So how does computer learn this? The computer learns this by slightly reducing the probability of other words coming out and increasing the probability of the word moa coming out. This is an approximate explanation, so this is not a completely accurate explanation, so please mind that. Anyway, and for the downstream task I said, it is the problem we actually want to solve. It's about distinguishing a sentence, whether it is positive or negative. These two tests might seem different at first glance, but it's about converting the input into the results of which category it belongs to. So these are actually similar cases. Now, let's move on to the experiments and results. I use Bert and other previously disclosed model because which already went through the pre-train process. Okay, and different data were learned into the same model to see what differences were in performance. I made a corpus called Korean Literature Corpus as Treatment Group. I call this KLC for the rest of this presentation. Now, this data consists of part of Yun-Dong-Ju's poem, which divides the positivity into 1 and negativity into 0. The reason why I chose Yun's poem was that it was relatively easy to set certain standards that classify polarity because of a little sense of subject. Okay, secondly, and I used the corpus called NSMC as a control group. This data is almost same as KLC, but this data used Naver's movie evaluation from user. This data was summarized randomly for the fairness of learning. Now, and if you, after the fine-tuning process, when you enter a sentence to this model, it returns a probability of positivity and negativity like this. Pretty cool, right? Okay. And for the model test, I used Yun-Dong-Ju's poem again, but this time I used the data that is totally different from KLC. And I organized these data, these results, using confusion metrics. The left table is data we proposed, KLC, and the right is NSMC, a movie evaluation data. I used F1 score and MCC for the evaluation, which are mainly used in binary classification. Now, since recent studies show that MCC MCC is more reliable than F1 score, I will focus on explaining MCC. MCC consists of the value from -1 to 1. The closer it is to 1, the more confident the model with the proper answer has been created. Now, as you can see here, KLC clearly has a higher MCC than NSNC. Okay, so in conclusion, it can be interpreted that using literacy data better understands the emotions of literature. But since these input data and test data were so small that it is actually hard to judge anything only using this data. So this research actually needs lots of more data at this point. This was the research I enthusiastically worked on this semester. So thank you for listening to this presentation until the end.